Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Financial Advocate Podcast. This is Colin Meeks along with Ryan Stark, and both financial advisors, LPL financial advisors here at Maryland Financial Advocates. We wanted to do a case study today. It seems like Ryan, we get a lot of, most of our downloads, or not most of them, but our most downloaded podcasts are when we talk real life stories.
Yep.
Right? So we wanted to sort of take you guys through. Every now and then we'll run into something interesting that we think that you might want to know about. So I guess it starts with the fact that we all seem to be have this thought in our head that people are always everybody's doing better than us.
Right. Yeah.
You know, our neighbors have a better house, they got a better car, they're making more money, they have more money saved, and I can't tell you how many times we've sat in our conference room and had somebody come in, and no matter what amount of money they have, they're like, hey, I'm sure you're used to dealing with way more money than this, and I don't know if I've even got enough money to retire. And it's it's funny that we've had people come in with $50,000 and say that, and we've had people with $5 million come in and say that. And it's just crazy to think that people always think that, and I do it, we do it too. So it's not nothing wrong with it. But I guess the point that I want to get across is it doesn't really matter. You have to start with where you are, what you have, and plan for what you want to do. Somebody else's numbers make no difference. It doesn't matter. Some people will ask us sometimes, like, hey, what is so and so? What are other people doing in this situation? What should I be doing? Or what is something somebody else is doing that can help me out? And it really doesn't matter. We're not worried about what other people are doing. We're worried about what you're doing, what you have, what we can do to help you, if we can help you. So that's where our planning process starts.
Yeah, I agree. Not only a good financial tip, but probably a good life tip as well. It's not to worry about so much what other people think, because even though we may be able to do certain things that are similar between different people, there's always a specialized or customizable part in that plan, because everybody's a little bit different.
Right, and our, if you've listened to our podcast before, seen our videos before, you know that we have a very streamlined process. But our process is streamlined in the effect that we sort of take everybody through the same process. What happens in that process, though, can be different, very different from person to person. We do a financial plan, we meet with people initially, get some information, do a financial plan, and then try to help them match that financial plan up to their goals and assets and how they want to implement and what sort of their timeline is. But all kinds of things happen during that process that are quite different from time to time. So even though our process might seem streamlined, what goes on in the middle of the process is not very streamlined at all. We don't have any cookie cutter approach to anything that we do.
Right. Maybe the only thing I would say is collecting information in terms of trying to make sure we have all the data, but then what we do with it is always different.
Right. Right. So I want to go through a recent case study that we have, and it has to do with a single person we met with. She came to us through a referral, which is always nice. And we met with her a couple of times, and all sorts of issues popped up. And she, very, very smart lady, very organized lady, could probably have done everything that we did for her on her own. But again, getting outside of her own head and getting outside of her own world, wondering, is somebody else doing better than me? Are there things that I should be doing differently? And that's sort of where we come in. Our unique perspective is that, when you're in your own little world, people, you care about your problems and what's going on and the issues you're dealing with. But sometimes you might not be able to get the big picture. So it's always good to step back and have somebody else take a look at it.
Agreed, especially because what I realize with people is they look at it and they name their different accounts and remember them as if they're their own pots of money. Whereas I feel like when we're looking at a big picture and looking at the full plan, it allows us to work, use those accounts together. I think some people are like, oh, that's my CD, that's my Fidelity account, but they don't really think about it as like, this is my plan.
Right.
And I think that's where it comes together.
Each individual piece is sort of like in a vacuum. And I will tell you, we always tell people, the first time people meet with us, we sometimes call it like the junk drawer meeting, where they'll bring, we all have those drawers in our house where you throw your paper clips and your Chinese soy sauce and everything sort of accumulates in that junk drawer, and some of it you need and some of it you don't need, and some of it God knows why you have it in there, but people will come in with this junk drawer of stuff and we'll sort of pick through it and try to make sense of it. And this is not financial planning as much as it is organization. We try to make sense of what they have, why they have it, what they may need in the future, what they probably don't need, for their plan, and try to just put it all together and put it into some way that, that we can explain it and present back to them in a way that makes them feel, hey, I do have some pretty good stuff here, and maybe I don't need some of this other stuff. And the first part of that starts with our balance sheet. I mean, a lot of times when we meet with somebody and put a statement of net worth down in front of them, it blows them away because they've never done it.
Right, that's that full picture that they never got to see. They see this account over here, this account over here. They don't maybe account for the value of their home, which may not be liquid money, but it's at least something that we can show them. This is everything you got, and this is what you have to work with, and now let's start to plan from here.
Yeah, and when you sit down and look at the ink on paper, a lot of times people are they're scared to do it initially. You're frightened to do it because you might not like the results, but it is what it is. It's not going to change by not doing it. So it's always good to start with that balance sheet or statement of net worth that shows this is what I have, this is what I owe, and here's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So we start we don't start every presentation like that, but that's part of everything that we do is that statement of net worth. And just some issues that came up along the way that in this case that I thought that might be helpful to you if you're listening, because a lot of these will probably sound familiar to you, is a bunch of different accounts. This lady had 10 to 15 different accounts that were scattered out all over the place, and that's one of the things, even as organized as she was, it's hard to manage. If you've got an old account, she had a couple different employers, from former employers, retirement plans, just sort of, rather than try to manage those, they were just left alone for years and years and years, and that can be a good thing because the investments were left alone, like we always talk about. Leave things alone for as long as you can, but it's also not a good thing because it never really got put into a decent plan. So we're talking, she had all the different local banks you can think of. She had, a couple different bank accounts from the big name banks. She had a couple different brokerage accounts. She had a couple different retirement accounts. So one of the first places we started was just to add all those up and just say, hey, here's what it would look like if you consolidated those, and here's some options that you have. So, Ryan and I, we don't try to simplify things down to the point where you only have one or two things, but as much as we can simplify things, we think the better off it leaves people.
Absolutely, and it's normally easy to do without affecting anybody in any such of a negative way. It's just about putting accounts together so you see one bigger number instead of three smaller numbers.
Yeah, and people, and that could just be close. Take Bank of America and Wells Fargo and M&T and put it all into one. Mm-hmm. Get rid of two of the banks and put it all into one. Right. FDIC insurance limits now are pretty liberal, because people always used to worry about that, but now that they are pretty liberal, they can, you're able to protect more of that under the FDIC limits, and that's one of the things we're always paying attention to. The second thing was Social Security. She is over Social Security age, and there was a couple different tweaks that we could do to her Social Security claiming that really helped her out going forward. And when we talk to a single person, the Social Security rules they're all straightforward, but it tends to be a little easier to make sense of it if you're single. But there were still a couple of things we could do to sort of help her with her Social Security.
Absolutely.
And that's just a matter of let's hop online, let's get a current statement, let's see what things look like, and let's see how things would look if we did it one or two different ways, and making sure that she was taken care of there.
Yep. Social Security isn't something that I feel like people have to overthink, but it's still good to get help, because there's a difference between, should I collect at 62 and take my money? Should I collect at full retirement age and then I get to make as much money as I want with a little extra income? It's simple conversations, but they're always worth having.
Right, and if you're married, you're divorced, you're widowed, if you were the high earning spouse, the low earning spouse, there's so many different ways to claim Social Security, and you just need to know what those options are. And if anybody tries to overcomplicate it and make it sound like, I've heard statistics where there's 1,000 different ways to claim Social Security. Well, that's way overcomplicating it. There's really only a handful that you need to worry about. But we use software that helps us pick those out, but we also use common sense because there's no software out there that's as good as common sense. So we try to use one to sort of guide the other.
Sure.
So those are a couple of things. One of the other things we noticed was in meeting with her was, again, very, very astute lady, and she had some legal documents drawn up. And she had something a trust, basically. And we did some research and found out that it may or may not be active and it may or may not be funded.
Yeah.
So not to get into the legalities of any sort of particular trust, but this happens more often than you think. That somebody will go to an attorney and have this great slew of legal documents drawn up, looks great, comes in a nice binder, does everything that they want to say that it does, or does everything that the client wants it to do, but they never take the next step, which is to fund the trust.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's sort of, you know, that's like having this great Ferrari sitting in the garage and you never put gas in the engine and it's just sitting there and you're not able to use it for what you bought it for. So, you know, legal documents are great. We always, you know, recommend that our clients meet with attorneys to do those things, but the next step and the next logical step is to go ahead and make sure that those things are funded.
And the more attorneys that I meet and talk to, the more I'm realizing that this is much more common than I thought.
Yeah.
Not even to the fault to the attorney. You can only push somebody so hard to make sure they do something, and that's why when we're planning, we like to work in tandem with the attorney, because then it says you have this document, we take that document and make sure we apply it to the accounts that we have and make sure the beneficiaries are corrected or whatever we need to do. If an attorney is doing a one-off meeting with somebody and they're not working, you know, tightly with the financial advisor, you're really hoping that the person who just came in is going to go do the work for themselves, and that's maybe change the titling of a bank account or changing the beneficiary, and people don't always know what to do, so they put it off for a little bit and then they forget and it just never happens.
Yeah, and that's, you know, we like, and another one-off of that is beneficiary designations. We will meet with people and you know, go through all their beneficiary designations, and it's amazing to me, we'll find out, you know, there's an ex-spouse on there, or somebody, you know, when they started working, they put their mom and dad on there as a beneficiary of their retirement plan, and mom and dad are no longer here. Or, you know, there's second marriages, and you don't ever update it to put your current spouse, or, you know, you're including certain people in there that you no longer want, or no longer around, or no longer in your life. So it's just always good to check those beneficiary designations, check the trust documents, make sure everything is the way you want it. And I mean, one of the ways that we use to manage that, we have an annual schedule of events that we do for clients. And you know, from January 1st to December 31st, what are we going to do? We're going to review tax forms in March when they come in the mail. We're going to review required minimum distributions at some point during the year if they need to take those. If you're 70 and a half, we're going to, you know, review your investment allocations. We're going to look at, you know, if you're turning 62 this year, let's really start to kick Social Security around and see what that looks like. If there's a mortgage that's going to be paid off, if there's, you know, any financial thing, we write that out and we get a copy. You get a copy, and we put it in our contact management software. And rather than being reactive to these sort of things, we're proactive. You know, come March when your tax forms come in the mail, we're going to call you and say, hey, is there any questions that you have about your tax forms? If that's something you want us to do. Some people are okay just, you know, doing it on their own, but all those different types of things. That's the value of a financial plan, as opposed to, you know, just sort of buying a bunch of different investment products. And you can buy investment products anywhere, but to have somebody manage the whole process for you is something that we have built into our process.
Yeah, I think also I'm realizing by the time people get to us and decide to sit down with somebody, they really went to a seminar, they heard about this product, did a little bit there, they went to their bank and they got mentioned something, and they did a little bit there. And it's not that they're doing a bad job, they're taking advantage of possible opportunities, but is that the best thing for them when you put it all together?
Yeah.
I think that's where the planning really comes in.
And getting back to that junk drawer, I mean, there's, you know, we've all got them. I mean, I think we even have 2 junk drawers in my house with Happy Meal toys and straws and all kinds of party favors and everything that my kids have ever brought through the front door. So, but, you know, we've all got them. We want to make sure that we manage what we have and do it in a way that is working towards some sort of financial plan and financial goal. Mm-hmm. So, just to review, we've, you know, when we meet with people, whether it's doing financial planning for special needs, if you have a family member with special needs, if you're, you know, elder care financial planning, if you're trying to help an elderly relative or parent go through and get themselves organized, or if it's for you and you're just doing traditional financial planning for retirement or whatever goals that you have set, you know, our process is such that we're going to meet on the front end and get a lot of information, and then we're going to take that information and lay it out in a way that we think is easy to understand, and then we're going to help take those ideas that we come up with and put some sort of implementation schedule together that helps you work towards those goals. So that's what we did in this case with this particular client. We just hit on some of the high points, But there are other things, she had a handful of other products that we were able to sort of analyze and help her better understand and use in a way that she didn't think of with her plan. But again, we wrote all this out and we've got a schedule, we've got a plan. It's, you don't just hop in an airplane and say, I'm going to fly to California and not, plot it out. You need to, put the distances and vectors and wind and all that into play, and that's sort of what we do in our financial plan.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that we deal with are similar to this new client that we just got, which is they're very organized, but they're just not sure what's going on inside.
Right.
And it's kind of like you see your car and you have to wash it, but you don't know how to fix it on the inside. So you're keeping it nice and you're keeping it organized. There might be a list of investments.
Right, that's a good analogy.
But there's a point of how it works together, and knowing it inside and out is what's important. Again, going back to the planning process of why we do that, because we get to take a look on the inside and let you know what you think you could do better.
Yeah, how we think you could do better.
How we can improve.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we had a lady leave our conference room after a meeting this week, and she basically, sort of hit home. She's like, I just want somebody to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And we're not there to tell you what to do. We're there to suggest what you should do and back it up with facts and
Right.
opinions that we, and experiences that we have. But we're not there to, lay down the law and say you got to do this, you have to do this, and this is, we're not like, it's not communist Russia. We're trying to, guide you in the right way. But when we have a written financial planning document, it tells us what to do, and then our job is to take that and tell you what to do and sort of put it in a way that makes you feel good about doing it, and have reasons as to why you do it. So if this is the type of planning you're interested in, we are more than happy to talk further about it with you. And all you need to do is get in touch with us. You can call our office, you can email us, you can go to our website and find out more information. But our process is very straightforward. We charge a fair fee for all of our services. They're upfront. We tell you exactly what they are. And there's no hidden fees. There's no, we're not there to try to sell you a financial product if that's not something that's going to fit into the plan at the end. We're there to try to sort of guide you through our planning process and hopefully put something together that helps you work towards those goals that you have and you may not know how to start to work towards. So I think that's it, Ryan. We're good?
That's pretty much it. The only thing I would add is that the plan keeps changing as your life keeps changing. As we work together, we keep updating it, adding new information if things need to change. God forbid, but maybe you get divorced or something happens. Maybe you retire earlier or later. So although we have these balance sheets and taking snapshots of your picture and of what your financial picture looks like, we're working in tandem with you as we go on to make sure it stays that way.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, so get in touch with us if you'd like. We're more than happy to spend some time with you on the phone and tell you a little bit more. I think you got a good idea what we do and why we do it. So thanks for listening to this episode of The Financial Advocate, and we will catch you the next time.
Thanks for listening.